Now, let's dive right into our last panel discussion of the day around the topic of pets. I can already see our other two panelists on the screen. Very nice. Pets are often described as a bridge. On the one hand, they allow us to unlock the value of data for innovation and new business models, and on the other hand, they help us to protect the fundamental right to privacy. In that sense, pets can be a key element of building a responsible and future-proof data economy in Europe. But their practical use raises many questions. What role should regulation play, enabling or restricting? How can industry ensure that pets create a real value rather than becoming a buzzword? And what do we need so that these technologies move beyond expert cycles and actually build trust among citizens? These are questions we will today explore with our three panelists, and I'm very happy to welcome with me in the studio in Berlin Professor Dr. Dieter Kugelmann. In 2015, he was elected for President of the Authority for the Protection of Data and the Freedom of Information of Rhineland-Palatinate. And in 2023, he was re-elected for a second term. He is the editor of a commentary on the data protection law of Rhineland-Palatinate and co-editor of a commentary on the GDPR. Very nice to have you, Mr. Kugelmann. Next up on the screen, I can see Malte Beyer-Katzenberger. He was involved in drafting the EU Data Strategy of 2020 and the Data Act and the Data Governance Act, and is currently working on implementing these legal acts and the Data Union Strategy, which is being presented in autumn of this year. We're very happy to have you. Last but not least, I thought we had four panelists. Yes. Yeah, right, we have four. Confused. Next up, we have Ari Levenfeld. Ari is Global Head of Ads Privacy for Google's Government Affairs and Public Policy team. He has spent the last 20 years working for technology companies, focusing specifically on privacy, global compliance, data protection, and policy. Ari has published extensively on public policy related to digital privacy and holds several ad fraud and abuse prevention technology patents. Ari, very nice to have you. Now, our fourth panelist is Dr. Sachiko Scheuing. She is author of How to Use Customer and Data and the European Privacy and AI Governance Officer of Acxiom, an IPG interpublic group company, and a global leader in marketing services. She is currently serving her fourth term as the co-chairwoman of the Trade Association Federation of European Data and Marketing based in Brussels. We're also very happy to have you here today. Now that we've got all our four panelists together, I'm very happy to dive right into the discussion. And maybe we'll start with an introductory round so that each and every one of you can give a short statement. Pets, as I said in the beginning, are often seen as a bridge between innovation and data protection. If you all had to characterize pets in one sentence, or maybe I'll give you two or three, what would you say is the most important value or benefit of pets? Mr. Kugelmann, you can start if you would like to.
Well, thank you. Well, in my opinion, which is of course a data protection perspective, privacy-enhancing technologies are enhancing the minimizing of risks for the rights and freedoms of natural persons. So it's a technological approach to go for the goal to minimize risks, to have a use of data which is compliant with data protection.
Thank you very much. Next in the round, maybe Malte Beyer-Katzenberger.
Well, I fully welcome. Thank you for having me. I fully subscribe to what I just heard. From a regulatory point of view, we try to stay technologically neutral. So we observe the different techniques that are being developed. Say they're good to use. Well, we normally don't take a position on whether they're good to use, but it's as a result of the obligation under privacy law that you expect companies to make the best use of them. And we encourage them also with funding our own funding programs and experimenting with certain techniques and seeing how mature they are.
Thank you very much. Sachiko, maybe you next.
Sure, thank you very much. For me, also, as Professor Dr. Kugelmann said, it's a risk minimization tool, but it means so much more to me, actually, because it is a tool that is given to us to help balance the innovative use of the data, but at the same time remain in compliance. I'll conclude it with this way.
Perfect. Ari, last but not least, you.
Sure, thank you. I'm not known for being a one-sentence person, but I'll try. I think in terms of practicality, and for years, the privacy community has really wrestled with the idea of what constitutes a true privacy by design approach for building products. I think it's one thing to say that you do that. It's another thing to be able to prove that you meet a standard for privacy by design. And what makes pets different and so beneficial is that they have privacy and data protection values that can actually be measured. So as a scientific person, that I think is a huge benefit and game changer.
Thank you very much for this first short introductory round. Let's dive right into our first block of discussion. We want to take a look at the role of regulation and politics. Malte, given the Data Governance Act, the Data Act, and also the now upcoming Data Union Strategy, what role do you see for pets as enabling technologies that the Commission could support or regulate in the EU data economy?
Well, it comes maybe from two angles, and I might actually add that I'm recently got to work on e-privacy, where maybe this conversation also comes up. But first, under the Data Governance Act, we put a lot of hope in what in Germany is known as the Datentreuhänder discussion, data intermediation services. And we were saying we were actually regulating a type of entity that puts itself in the middle between companies that have data, that want to use data, individuals that want to pass on their data to third parties. And we were certainly hoping that part of this offering would be to have state-of-the-art techniques. As I said earlier, we are not here to assess in our legislative body to say which technology is good enough at this moment in time. Legislation has to endure. They can say it has to be state-of-the-art, but what the state-of-the-art is evolves. We sometimes see people who come to present certain techniques to us, but I'm a modest lawyer. I cannot scientifically ascertain. Some of my colleagues can. Well, we prefer not to say we favor this or that technique, but what we regulate is these entities that we were hoping to maybe also help in bridging that gap that you described earlier, that if you have in a common European data space, or also as a consumer, you want to use certain services, but you're not sure whether you should give the full data, that someone would give you the tools in your hand as an intermediate service provider, or process the data as a middle person in a kind of a fiduciary Treuhand situation, that this would be beneficial. Now, I think on the e-privacy front, where we are specifically strict at the moment, it's always consent-based. We often hear the comment that we're not incentivizing enough the use of privacy-enhancing technologies, because we're basically saying you always have to consent anyway, and then you make a very long list of consent purposes just in case, as a website operator, and that would then basically say, now that I have to clear data anyway and I have a long mandate, incomprehensible in a pop-up banner, I'd rather use them. So what we're thinking at the moment is also seriously to incentivize in this setting the more use of the privacy-enhancing technologies, but we're not quite sure how that will go. What's the best way to do it? But we certainly want, companies to maybe use it out of their own motion, because ultimately it's for companies then to pick and choose which ones are mature, how cost efficient are they for my use case, and that's not something that the regulator can predetermine.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll take a look at the company perspective in just 1 second. I have one question for Mr. Kugelmann. As a supervising authority, what regulatory instruments can national, or not national, but in this case national supervising authorities use to promote the responsible use of pets, and or if, where do you see the limits?
In my opinion, the using of pets has to be an advantage. Has to be an advantage for the company, has to be an advantage for the entity applying the pets, and pets is a variety of tools. So as Malte Beyer-Katzenberger pointed out, it's the question, what do you choose for doing your job and for processing your data? And what you choose, that's, for example, a question during while implementing the data protection impact assessment. So pets can play a huge role in the DPIA. Of course, that's what Ari said. Then they have to be documented so that it's clear we did it. It's not only on paper, it's working, it's real life. For us, that's one thing. The other thing is, of course, from the point of view of data protection authorities, it's a tool of Article 25, 32, so privacy, data protection by design. And it's a technical measure, or perhaps a bundle of technical measures relating to the special processing of data, a bundle of technical measures where you can say, well, that's what we did. We comply with data protection law because we have actually implemented these kind of different technical measures, which are right under the line of pets. And then you can say, well, and that, dear authority, shows that my processing is compliant.
Perfect, thank you. Maybe one follow-up question to you, Malte, and to you, Professor Kugelmann. Do you see any specific steps that could be taken to ensure that the regulation of pets promotes innovation rather than hindering the innovation? Maybe you can, if you want.
Yes, what we can do and what the European Commission can do is, and they do it, to strengthen the idea of data minimization. And to clarifying, data minimization does not mean as few data as possible. It means the data you need. That can be a lot of data or a few data, but the data you need. Because pets are a technical measure to realize data minimization and confidentiality. And for example, if you see not only the data protection law, but also technical measures. If you have a look at the Cyber Resilience Act, there's one element is if you do a product in the European market, you have to make sure that this product is obeying data minimization. So, because of course the product is only supposed to use as many data as it needed and not more. So these kind of rules for me are important from the legislative perspective to make sure, yes, you have an advantage if you use these technologies, and you can really rely upon then the authorities to have a look on that and to see it positive if you do.
Malte, do you have something to add?
I wanted almost to kick the ball back into Mr. Kugelmann's and his colleagues' court, because a strong enforcement of the regime, which is actually very robust in many ways, paired with then the interest to innovate on the other side, will create the business drive. Because once there is good innovation that pays off, and you know you have to respect the law because it's forcefully applied and you should not play dirty tricks, then you have actually all the incentives you need to say, I will use the techniques evolved. A second thing, obviously, is that you want, maybe if you are a smaller company, you want to have off-the-shelf solutions, and you want to know that if I use this or that product from the pets market, it will give me certain guarantees. And I don't know how exactly you would want to do that, but of course you could have certification at any kind of depth of any of these techniques, which I think we're missing at the moment.
I think that's a good point to take the industry perspective into the discussion. And Ari, maybe one question for you first. Companies regarding pets are, not regarding pets, but companies are under pressure in the field, or especially in the field of digital advertising. What concrete pet approaches do you already see in use? And how do you think these can strengthen the trust of users and also of regulators?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I know that we're talking about pets like they're a brand new thing today. They're something that companies began to experiment with about 5 or 10 years ago. That's when I personally remember things beginning to change. We saw products with less data being collected, made better use of the information that was collected, and in many ways they eliminated the need to have to share information broadly, which has the benefit of making it harder to identify users and also enable better data governance. What we've heard over and over from companies in the industry is that some of them are reluctant to choose the technology when there's uncertain support or it's unclear what the compliance intersection is. So some don't want to go all in on the new technology, which requires really expensive developments that could potentially risk being at a competitive disadvantage to others in the industry, especially when it's not clear how regulators feel about the technology. Fortunately, we're starting to see some companies experiment with pets and build and release products that are designed with privacy-enhancing technologies that help address the data protection principles that are at the heart of European data protection law, which in my opinion, as American, leads the world on. So it's very exciting to see some of these types of examples of companies that are already doing that.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Sachiko, if I now look over to you, what do you think? How can companies ensure that the use of pets is not understood as privacy washing, but actually delivers an added value?
Oh, I have to say, I mean, because the need is serious, the need is real.
Yeah.
So if you think about marketeers, because I'm really talking about the marketing and advertising industry where I specialize, we really marketeers are really concerned about the trust that they develop with their customers and potential customers. So they want to do their best to protect their data. But also players in our industry, the marketing services companies, well, usually whenever they want to become the service provider of advertisers, they need to, first of all, fulfill all the requirements that are listed out during the request for proposal stage. And it is already for a couple of decades now this way. Data protection is one of the biggest hurdles, one of the biggest criteria that we need to fulfill. So from that point of view, there is a concrete need to actually accountably display that. On the other hand, on the practical side, there are, I would say, very generally speaking, 3 types of pet use that are quite popular in our industry. So first of all, and I think this would, and this may be very obvious, to provide security. So in your own company, when you're processing personal data, the first thing you do is you pseudonymize the data so that, for instance, your analysts can be very creative, can do different analysis within a very respectful, privacy-respecting atmosphere. Secondly, you have perhaps heard of the notion measurement. So every campaign that you carry out, right? You want to know how successful that campaign was, and in that field, you don't really have to know that this person is the person who responded. No, you want to know whether in general, how many % respond to the thing and so on. So there you can deploy pets too. The biggest added benefit where I see is in the field of collaboration. Pets in collaboration. I think, was it Ari, you mentioned that, but, actually it was Malte. We tend to use the word data clean room or confidential matching. Sometimes also in Germany, perhaps a lot, trusted third party. So what you do is you would actually incorporate these pet mechanism in the working when you are sharing data with each other in marketing. So for instance, say a luxury car brand wants to do an advertising, but to say an orchestra, let's say because you're in Berlin, the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra, you have subscribers and they have this, certain affinity to say nice, luxurious car. Then what they do is they actually want to, first of all, match their data and compare. But of course, nobody wants to give away their data in an unprotected manner. And there, pets are very, very useful. So to come back to your point, it is not privacy washing. It really is a necessity for our industry. May I emphasize?
Thank you very much. Maybe Ari, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are many examples of companies that are developing the types of products that Sachiko just mentioned that are actually in market right now. There are a number of companies that offer clean room products and also confidential matching and confidential compute solutions that are specifically designed to be able to allow data to be shared between companies while at the same time protecting it, so that you're not actually handing over the data to another company who might not be able to represent the same privacy promises or guarantees that you have made to your own users and customers. And some of those include companies like Amazon that uses PET called differential privacy in its systems. That's a technology that adds a layer of randomness or noise to data analysis, so that ensures that when you're deriving insights from data gained from that analysis, it's much harder to re-identify the underlying individual. I'd also would be remiss, and I would get in trouble with my colleagues if I didn't mention the work of Google Ads, whose confidential matching product is live and in use right now. Confidential matching is based on a technology called a trusted execution environment that has significant benefits, particularly for companies that want to use their own first-party data while maintaining a high level of privacy and security. And the key benefit, which I alluded to at the very beginning of our panel, of this technology is that it goes beyond contractual promises or processes that you hope you have to take somebody's word for. You can actually receive a mathematical guarantee that data was processed and only shared in exactly the way that you expected. And I think that that's what makes these types of technologies that Sachiko was just referring to so different from some of the tools that we have used in the past.
If I may?
Of course you can.
Just one remark. Yes, I do absolutely agree. You mentioned trusted environments, on-device analysis for marketing, things like that, federated learning. But what, in my opinion, should be borne in mind is to make it, let's say, practical for SMEs. So everybody should use it. And so sometimes these technologies have the problem that they need a lot of capacity, that they are not so cheap. So it would, and if let's say a small and medium enterprise perhaps thinks about using pets, then in this bundle of offers, it would be good if there are technologies which are easy to apply for them, so that we really try to get this privacy enhancement throughout the economy.
Yeah, thank you very much. That actually brings us, thumbs up, very good. That actually brings us to my next point that I wanted to talk about with you. So pets are technically complex. And yeah, from your perspective, maybe a question to you all, what is needed to better inform industry, also politicians and citizens? Are standards needed, tools, guidelines, public education? What do we need to inform the people and all the others? Malte, maybe you first.
Yeah, as I said earlier, sometimes companies come to us, present things, and then we have no means to verify. I think that's really what the oversight authorities also ultimately have to do, and I admire them for having to do all these inspections and understand these specific natures of some of the systems. But if indeed we had also a service market for certification for individual products that would validate, with all things being case by case and all things being with different say generally, if you use this technology, it would minimize your measurably reduce or even eliminate your any of the risks. Are you actually still under GDPR if you use the resulting data? Are you compliant with, have you done a good balancing test in terms of Article 6.1f if you use this and you can still rely on this test? So all the things that you want to know as a company, if there was a service offering that would, for the products, that would really be interesting. And I'm still wondering myself why we see so little certification schemes. Is it unattractive? Is no one want to paying for this? Is it hard to set them up? I'm coming also here to this panel, maybe with a bit of a learning experience. So if I see maybe the product that I know that Google offers, I mean, if I'm now a medium-sized publisher in Europe or any other advertising company, how can I be sure that my DPA will actually like this without having to go to that data protection authority? Can I maybe rely on a certification scheme? That I think is something we're missing, and I'm not sure how regulators can push for this. I mean, it's foreseen in GDPR, but what do we make out of the fact that so few schemes have come up and they are mostly not about certifying technologies? Do we need more standards that can then say I'm compliant with standard ISO X? I don't know. I'm also looking forward to Sachiko's and Ari's and Professor Kugelmann's comment on this.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sachiko, maybe you next with the marketing perspective. Do you agree with Malte, or what do you think would be, points we could consider?
I think it's really interesting that Malte's point about certification and so on. I mean, certainly, because one thing that I think would help promote PET would be certainly the provision of legal certainty. And the certification can help, but also the general understanding of what fulfills the criteria of PET, of a sound, robust PET. I may even go like one step like higher to mention like two things that needs to be in place before we can even start talking about spreading the word about pets, and that is, first of all, the role of risk-based approach. Within the GDPR, I think somehow the impression that people have when people talk about data protection, they automatically say consent. And I was like, I actually do want to have the risk-based approach gain that level of awareness among companies, among data subjects, and so on. The second bit, which I think is very important before pets can actually be made popular and so on, would be the acceptance of the term pseudonymization, or better said, pseudonymization as a safety mechanism, as a security mechanism, be more accepted also among regulators. And here, not because of Professor Kugelmann that I'm saying that, but the German regulators are quite good about it because, we have been, here in Germany, we have been living with pseudonymization already from the time of BDSG, the previous Data Protection Act, right? But I think the level of awareness of how big a role pseudonymization can play still should be advocated in all directions among regulators, but also among the public.
Thank you very much. Ari, have you something to add?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what's been said so far. I think pets are very complicated in how they work, and so far there has been a lot of focus on trying to figure out how to explain their benefits to the everyday person. I think the goal should not be to get to a place where my mother understands differential privacy and multi-party computation. She has no interest in that. I do think that part of privacy by design is about removing the responsibility of the consumer from having to understand complex data flows, business relations.
I don't want to interrupt you, but your tone is somehow a bit criggly. I don't know if you're on the mic or something. It was better before.
I'm sorry, is this any better?
Not really.
Let me try restarting.
Now it's much better.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. I think industry has to understand how technology works, so they can create the standards that we were just talking about. For that to be effective, policymakers have to understand enough to incentivize the process. So I think it would be helpful to have people like Mr. Beyer-Katzenberger, Dr. Kugelmann, at the table or aware of different standards and guidelines that are being created. So we get to the point where everybody is operating who uses pets at the same level, and we avoid the danger of privacy washed solutions, which will wind up muddling the benefits as perceived by regulators, but also ultimately consumers.
Thank you very much, Ari. I don't know, Mr. Kugelmann, if you want to refer to what she said.
Yes, perhaps just two remarks. The one is I think awareness is a good thing, but it's perhaps a little bit too complicated. That's what Ari said. With pets to explain all the details, but it may be a chance if there's a link between the pets and IT security. So if you can tell the people your handy get hacked if you don't do that and that, then it may be a help, but it's only a small help. I think the bigger point is really to have an abstract rule. That's what Mr. Beyer-Katzenberger said. Certification would be a solution. I also do not really understand why it does not fly as a concept. But perhaps the next idea we may have is to try to implement, to test pets in sandboxes. So the future sandboxing we plan so that we say, well, if you have this kind of technology and you use this and that pets, then it's okay. And then this can be referred to by other companies, by other parts of economy. So because we really have to come to general, to abstract solutions and to make it easier for the people to understand that is something positive.
Yeah, I also think it's kind of still a topic for experts. And Ari, do you think that Professor Kugelmann's suggestion that these sandboxes do you think that would help?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it would help on many levels. For starters, it would give companies some assurance that pets are technologies that regulators are looking at seriously. And this has been a problem to date, because companies weren't sure if there were any regulatory benefits to using them in the first place. So at least this would create that type of relationship. It would also give companies the opportunity to experiment without the fear of reprisal. And I think because the technology is so new right now, companies are worried that if they use the pets in the wild, in production, and they do something incorrectly, and there's no precedent, then they're going to get into a lot of trouble. And so regulatory sandboxes, I think, have been used very effectively in a lot of other contexts to solve these two very problems.
Thank you very much. We don't have too much time left, but I want to do one final round, and maybe every one of you can answer the question shortly. So we were already kind of talking about a wish list. If you look at the next 12 months, what do you think, which specific political or business signal would be the most important to get pets, or to bring pets from theory into practice? Maybe Mr. Katzenberger, Malte, you would start.
Well, my impression is they're not theoretical at all. So they are actually being used in many different forms, if you want. And obviously, we would like to see this much, much more. I'm a lawyer, as I said, but I believe in the power of technology. And I think we should all believe maybe a little more in the power of technology to bridge that gap, as you said, that we can do many, many things. And there are many, many smart brains in cryptography at the universities. And please, companies, soak them up, bring them in your data analytics teams, and do things that are technically possible, that are not fairy tale. And then I wish that the decision makers say, okay, I'm also taking a chance. I maybe don't exactly know whether this technology is as performant as they promise it to me, but I'm willing to try it out. So also maybe on the side of the business is a bit of experimental feeling to say we will do this because we generally believe this is the way to go. And then if sandboxes and certification schemes are there, that then obviously helps. And we will do our part. Also, we, well, as a legislating part of the legislating body, to say we will draft any future rules in mind of saying that we should maybe have much more confidence in technology being able to bridge that gap.
Thank you very much. Before I hand over to the other panelists, we do have one question in the chat. I would like to read it, and whoever wants to answer it can do that. It says, good afternoon to all, and thank you for the input and Q&A. How will privacy and trust be enabled beforehand? When setting up, for example, an LOI, will we need secure grounds for trust in exchanging any val before entering a data room and deciding to team players, devices, and necessary applications?
I am happy to add a couple of thoughts. I would also be curious to hear Sachiko's thoughts. I know she's thought a lot about this. This is where common standards and guidelines, as agreed upon by the industry, is so important, so that you go beyond the idea of the one-on-one contract, and companies can point to the guidelines or standards that were agreed upon by some kind of a neutral industry body as the common way for doing things. And again, I think that for that to have even more weight, having the participation of members of civil society or the government, even in an observatory role, would make that very, very useful and hefty if such standards were agreed to. And I know that there are some associations who are already beginning to think about this.
Sachiko, do you have anything to add?
Yes, very much so. Since Ari ended with some associations, well, FIDMA is one of such associations, and thankfully we are partnering with Google on this particular topic because it is of the industry's interest to raise awareness of the helpfulness of a pet, and so we truly believe in Malte, what you have said, solving privacy problems with technology. I think there's a really constructive, good way to actually hit the right balance this way.
Thank you very much. As we're already over time, I would give the word one last time to Professor Kugelmann. If you have, back to my actually closing question, what, from your point of view, what political signal is important to, as we heard, don't bring them from theory to practice, but bring them even more into practice?
Well, as I'm an optimistic person, I think perhaps we have even a window of opportunity because of AI. Because AI means a risk-based approach, and pets means minimizing risk. So we can tell all the companies who want to apply something like AI, whatever it is, to say, well, if you apply it, then please think about minimizing risks, mitigating risks, and you can do that by using technologies which are named pets, and there you can really help yourself by minimizing your risk and minimizing the obligations you have.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you all for your time, and thank you to Brussels. Thank you to the US. Have a good day, Ari, in the US. You all others have a nice afternoon, and thank you for joining. I hope to see you maybe at next year's privacy conference. Thank you very much.
With pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.